So, first of all, I want to invite our audience back to The Return of the Enchanted Self, which is the title at the moment that these interviews around our new film, we have to be under some sort of umbrella. But maybe we'll change that to just the title of our film as the umbrella. But for tonight, I'm going to use the enchanted self because that's like my code word to all the work I've done over the years, helping people reach their enchanted selves. So tonight, we're going to talk about our film, and I have the pleasure of my own husband sitting here, who even has missed half his supper to get here in time to talk and be with us. And I also have this fabulous filmmaker that I have had the luck, really the luck of life to find at this point in my career. And Joe, and I'm always afraid with a last name. I would like you to pronounce it. I'm
It's
afraid. Go
it's
ahead.
Manila.
Manila. Okay, Joe Manila. And we're going to talk about our great film that we're working on. We already started the photography. Um, and I think maybe the smartest way to start is to let you, Joe, tell a little bit about your background and maybe why the film I Had an Affair with My Husband even interested you.
Sure. Well, I got into film a little later in my collegiate life. Schooling. I was there for business and playing baseball when I was at the University of Scranton, and I um I started to when I got to senior year, I started to realize I better figure out what I'm going to do with my life now because I might not be able to play center field for the Yankees, and I don't see myself sitting in an office, so I did a lot of soul searching, and I actually pulled a hamstring really bad my senior year of college. And when I was left off the baseball trip, I was able to think, and I started writing. I wrote a little script, and it was about a couple guys that get in trouble when they're in college, so they plot to have their RA killed, and it's like they accidentally hire a hooker instead of an assassin, and it's like a whole wild comedy. It's exactly something that a 22-year-old would write. So, or however old I was at the time. So I went from there. I graduated and then went and just instead of getting the quote unquote real job, I got a job as a waiter because I had already done that most of my life through high school and college to make some extra money. And I started going to film school and directing off Broadway shows in the city because I wanted to learn everything about production inside and out. And then I also realized as years went on, and I was doing short films and little features and shows and all kinds of stuff, that I also really want to have a family. And I'm not going to be able to support a family with a hobby like this. So I better find a way to make this an income very quickly. So I got into the wedding industry, and I had been doing a little bit for other people for extra money. And I shot a wedding for a friend, not for a lot of money, and ended up they loved it so much that all her bridesmaids hired me, and I ended up going from nothing to having a company that had 35 jobs booked on the calendar for the next year. And then,
Wow.
long story short, I continued to try to find my ways back to film. Weddings was only ever supposed to be temporary. And I, ended up in the corporate world a little bit more commercial work. Then I did a documentary about Hurricane Sandy, and that helped get a lot of eyeballs on my work. And as time went by, I one day went and joined a networking group, and a very nice woman there introduced me to you. And now we're together doing one of these and hopefully many more. I hope
So,
I didn't ramble too much.
no, that's very good, and it's good to know each other's histories, I think. And
Sure.
that means it's also good for Russell and myself to know our history. So why don't you tell us a little bit why why we're even doing this? Why we're here talking about, well, making into a film a, a, a story that we invented, so to speak.
Well, actually, this is based on a real event. Uh, we were on vacation. Uh, we flew to Portland, Oregon, spent, I guess, 3 or 4 days there, and drove out into the hinterlands. Our first stop was a town called Sisters, Oregon, which was about as large as this computer screen. Tiny little town. But it had a nice Thai restaurant, and I think it had a motel because we stayed there overnight. And the next morning, I realized we were going to move on to our next destination, which was not far from where we were in Sisters. So I said to my wife, "You know, we came.
I get it.
No, you know, we came. The scenic route. Why don't we go up into the mountains that are right here and just see it?" And so we drove out onto this lonely road that had nothing much on it but scenery. And we kept on driving. I knew we'd meet up with a faster road back into town so that we might be able to move on to our next destination. When all of a sudden, Barbara, after we're about an hour out, says, "Turn around, go back. I need a bathroom and I need lunch." And I realized that was the slow way to go back. And I said, "We'll meet up with a road that will take us back into the little town more quickly." She was not satisfied with that because it never had been there before. So, in order to address her concerns, I spoke to her in an Indian accent, and I said, "Oh, you must not talk to him like that. He's only trying to show you a good time. You have to be a good sport." And that was the beginning of her requesting that Subramanian, which was not the name that I had invented. The name I had invented was Subramanian, but to her it was Subramanian. And she, throughout the rest of the vacation, whenever she was slightly annoyed, she would ask for Subramanian. So, based upon this, sometime later, we decided to write a short story about how the person that I was became jealous of my alter, who she seemed to prefer to me. That's not what actually happened, but I did play along with it on the trip. And we did go to an Indian restaurant, and there was a busboy there who was all of about 5'2". And I just said to her, "Do you know who that is?" And she said, "Who?" I said, "Him." She said, "No." I said, "That's Subramanian." Then she got very angry with me. So based upon that, the short story we wrote was about an individual who does what I did, speak in a Indian accent to calm down his partner, his spouse, and and how he eventually became jealous of this character that he created because his wife seemed to like him more than the than her spouse.
So I think what we everything that Russell said was basically true, except that secretly in my heart, I wouldn't really mind if this other person reappeared once in a while. he doesn't seem to. I think he's tied up in India with his own family, so I'll certainly let him be. But one of the things that we began to realize as we occasionally revisited the trip and the story and so on is really how complicated marriage is and how unbelievable it is that so many marriages get saved rather than so many get divorced. Because if you think about it, um, people marry from two different families if it's going to be two people, family A and family B. And everyone might say, oh, well, that's great. You have so much in common. You're even the same religion, whatever. But the truth is that two families are very different. They're very different. You walk into people's houses and you even almost like smell the difference. One house feels happier than another, one is busier than another, whatever. And kids even recognize that kind of thing. And so once we leave our home of origin and we go into marriage, uh, it's amazing. It's amazing we do survive. So we began to think that this is interesting if we can make it somewhat funny and yet also open a door of a little bit of wisdom around how it may be best to be honest and at times share that something is brewing or we're not feeling right or whatever, and help each other through certain moments. So I'll throw it back to you now. um,
Just
join in.
coming to me. All right. I agree with everything that you just said. I'm obviously younger in my own marriage, but I notice these things. I guess any filmmaker will tell you this. I study people. Like I look at people and I try to figure out their life situation and what's behind it. I've always been intrigued with the things that people do to keep a marriage fresh. And I always had this right around the time that I met you, I had it in my head. I hadn't been able to start writing something yet because I have so many other jobs. What it would be like if a couple that was kind of in a rut decided to start role playing, and would that help the marriage? But then at the same time, would one of them or maybe even both of them feel like all this fun they're having is not real? And would they end up becoming jealous of an alter ego? And then I met you and you had this short story, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, this is so true to something I'd love to experiment with. And I like it because I feel like a lot of new art nowadays is very cynical. It doesn't have a lot of happy endings. In fact, a lot of movies and short or feature narrative, they don't. Some don't even have endings at all. And what I liked about this was it's a slice of life. It shows a little window into somebody's life that could be anybody, and it probably is more people than we would think, and they figure out a way to work it out. Like they come to it. And I think that I like that. I think that that's necessary. I think it's going to be a great thing for couples and people to watch, to see that, okay, like we can go through a hard time, find a solution that actually makes things worse, but then still come out the other side laughing together and figuring this out. I think it's going to be a funny thing to show. I think it's going to be entertaining, but at the same time, I think it's going to be helpful to people.
I agree. I'm hoping it'll be very helpful, and there'll be a lot to discuss. And maybe tell us a little bit about some of the scenes, or even some of the actors that are coming aboard, or maybe some of the other ins and outs of putting this together.
Sure. I mean, as you saw, we lucked out with actors and actresses that just kind of fell into place. It feels a lot like this is just a film and a story that was meant to be told because it's just kind of working out. We have a lovely young actress, Jessica Miano Crowell. Like, she's going to be coming out from Los Angeles to film. I think she's actually she lives in Florida, but she's out in
Mhm.
LA, and she's her work's fantastic. We have Justin Wilson playing the role of Larry, who's just a great character actor, especially from everything I've seen him in. We had Casey Webb join the cast, the host of Man vs. Food, and he came on and just has this larger than life personality and great in a comic relief role. And we had them out playing pickleball and everything. I think it was great. And then we're gonna have just a lot filling in the cast around that. A lot of people stepping up from the producer level. Obviously, Jean, like, she's going to be great in her role as Amelia. So, there's a lot to look forward to with this whole group.
Yes, there is a lot to look forward to. So, I think that one of the things that can come out of it is more comfort in maybe not only realizing how hard marriage is and being somewhat forgiving, just understanding that, but looking for ways to have fun and forgive at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
because we can't become really each other in we can't. We're each individual human beings, and we're never going to see exactly eye to eye. But there's so much that we can do to get closer to each other. And I think that this film being not totally hysterical, but having quite a bit of humor is good
Mm-hmm.
because it shows people that that's one way to feel better again.
While it is very, making a marriage work is very complicated.
Mm.
Every way I can think of to make a marriage work does fails unless the couple are able to keep uh, keep a humorous repartee.
Yes.
Silliness is appropriate. Uh,
I'm sorry.
she's very silly,
I'm sorry. I can't totally control that. Okay, go on.
and but you have to be able to not to violate trust. And
Yes.
trust is very important in almost anybody who talks about marriage will talk about trust. But with trust comes comfort and
Mm-hmm.
the ability to be able to create silliness. And I'll
Yes.
tell a story that has nothing to do with this film, but is also another true story. We were invited to go to her parents' timeshare for a long weekend. One Friday afternoon, we had our bags packed. I worked for a few hours and then came home, and was prepared to put the bags in the car, and off we would go. And I said something that was profoundly stupid, and it was not meant to be funny. I said, "Which car are we going to take?" Which was stupid because I knew which car we were going to take. And she said, "Let's take the Dodge. It's a newer car and it's got airbags." I said, "I was thinking we would take the Acura. The Acura is a very good car, very safe car. It's a little bit older, it's on a lease. And if we don't take it, I'm going to turn it in with a lot of unused miles." She was not happy with that because it didn't have airbags. It was back in the time before airbags,
Not
although the
everyone had it. Just
Dodge
standard.
did have airbags. So we're in the car and I'm driving the Acura, and I could tell I have a very sour woman sitting next to me. And so I said to her, "Here I am thinking I'm going to spend this wonderful weekend with the most wonderful woman in the world. And all of a sudden I realize it's not her, it's the other one. Where is my wife and what you do with her?" And she laughed, and we had a good time.
And not only that, we still now talk about the other one who gets locked in the closet sometimes. There
Yeah.
really, there really is no other one. I don't want you to think we're hiding someone.
No,
I
You
don't
no.
know.
know,
If I have an ulcer, you maybe you do too.
so, well, so what else would you like to share with the public? Because it's a filming is your life and your salary, your money, your income, your world, and it's mine too in many many ways. Not so much Russell, but of course he's in on it. What else would you like to say tonight?
I mean, I just love everything about this medium because I love the places that it takes you. Already, I'm not that old yet in my life, but the people I've met and the things I've done without really having much fame or anything else are amazing. And there's just so much to being a filmmaker. In a lot of ways, you're an engineer because you're a problem solver. You have to figure out how to get complicated things done and lead a group. Being a storyteller, is just it's one of the greatest gifts that anybody can give to the world is that we continue to tell our own stories and other people's stories and put ourselves into other people's stories and all that. I think a lot of it is about legacy. When you're I always talk about when I'm trying to pump people up about film and stuff we're working on. I'm like, 100 years after you're gone, the work that you did is still going to be sitting there. I still sit and when I need inspiration, I watch movies by Alfred Hitchcock. He had
Mhm.
passed away before I was even born. Like in some ways, you almost a piece of you lives on forever when you're an artist. And I don't know if all artists think of it that way. I think everyone has a reason why they have to get out what they have to get out. I was just a person that I realized in my life, this is what I was born to do. This is what I was called to do. You put me on a film set, it all comes very natural to me. I know how to get what I need done, and I know how to be a leader of a group. Almost like, I look at like I'm one of the parents of the group. I always try to do what I can to make everyone else better and have something special. Greg, the one who's the DP on this, we had our first collaboration. We had known each other for a while doing weddings and stuff like that. And we had not worked together as like a director and a DP yet. And we were shooting a horror feature. And, he didn't understand. And one of the things I told him, I was like, one of my goals here is for you to be in some film festival and get a cinematography award because then I'll know that I did my job effectively leading this group well. If all of you are getting accolades and awards for the things that you did, and I like that. That's why it's just, I could ramble on and on because I love everything about the medium. I love everything about the arts, but film just checks off so many boxes for me. I've loved movies forever. If I'm having a hard time in life, whether I'm feeling a little down, I'm a little angry, or I just need a little bit of inspiration, I go to the movies. Many times I've gone to the movies by myself. I get in
Mhm.
a fight with a girlfriend or someone like
Mhm.
that, or I didn't make a baseball team or something over the years. I wasn't the type to go to a bar and go crazy. I would be like,
Mhm.
you know what, I'm gonna go for a run, but then I'm gonna go to a movie and I'm gonna sit and I'm just gonna disappear in this dark room with a bunch of strangers and watch these images on a screen and hear these sounds and it's gonna take me to this place. And if I can create that for other people, I mean that's the dream, you know.
Well, that is so beautiful. And on that note, I think we're going to draw to a close. I hope over the next few months we'll bring on some of the stars and
Absolutely, yes.
some of the people from the back in the back that are just making sure things happen properly.
Yes.
And we'll continue this. So thank you so much.
Are you satisfied with what you've just done?
Oh, I think so, but I'll know more about whether I'm satisfied. If you could just keep talking that way. Uh-oh.
Never.
Keep it up.
All right, so we're done for tonight, and thank you for coming aboard. And
Thank you both, not just for tonight, but for everything. I'm excited to go through this journey with you, and I hope when all is said and done, you'll feel like you trusted the right person. You know, nothing would matter to me more than that. I'm just hoping to do justice to the both of you and your stories.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.